Yeah.
As soon as I open Excel, oh my goodness, I need a new Excel document.
Does the pen in your mouth thing really work?
Yes,
Not during that.
don't do it during rounds, yeah.
I clearly addressed it, like my partner, clearly.
Clearly addressed it, yeah, clearly being the operative word.
Yeah,
Could you do me a favor and read me the resolution so I don't have to type it in while somebody is?
Resolve the United States federal government should approve and ratify the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
There's a lot of dehumes going on.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
right.
much DHM.
This is an environment issue. Come on, dehumes.
I know, right?
We defined animals as humans, so then indigenous
So Prime Minister,
animals.
please rise and give a speech not to exceed 7 minutes.
Yeah. Alright, cool, everyone ready?
Yep.
Resolve the United States federal government should approve and ratify the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
Twice.
Framework. Resolve the United States federal government should approve and ratify the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Framework. 1. Discourse shapes reality. Our discourse in the round is shapes future political decisions. 2. Indigenous people discourse is uniquely important because the harm we've caused them in the past 200 years. We've continued to cause harm again and again and again. 3. Representation of indigenous peoples is going to verify solid methodology. Thus, we provide representation. 4. View rounded through an ethical lens first because this is a real world impact. It affects people outside the round. 5. Util sucks. Point A. Infinite effects on actions that can be evaluated, but we must know the impacts of the discourse. B. Massive real-world oppression by ignoring problems that are supposedly solved by fiat. 3. C. Util debates are bad because it's difficult to adjudicate between competing facts. D. Our framework provides more critique ground than a normal team. E. They have complete access to the impact turns or link turns via our discourse. F. Commodifies members of a people instead of actually engaging in them. G. Causes intrinsic and unquantifiable quantities to turn into numbers and figures. H. There are big calculability limits in util, and we cannot measure the consequences of the exclude unique miscalculations. Okay. Move down to 6. In a college debate setting is a proper forum for the strategy because we're the future policymakers of tomorrow. Thus, we defend the plan text for the resolution. 7. Afghans RBIs. 1. Checks use of theory. 2. Creates equal access for the ballot via theory. 3. No risk issues to encourage uneducational argumentation. 4. Avoids time suck and thus debaters only read theory when absolutely abusive. 5. Key to fairness because it is only reciprocal adjudication for the theory debate. 6. Avoids judge intervention because judge has to choose one side or the other. I dare you to read theory on us. Advantage 1. Cultural genocide. Uniqueness. Key. We screwed over indigenous peoples in the past, e.g. the Plains Indians, the Navajo, the Native Americans in general. We have killed them, we have raped their women, this is a horrible thing. 2. They lack representation in the international sphere. The international sphere is extremely important for interaction with the rest of the world. 3. Cultural genocide is going to occur if nothing is done at the moment. 4. This type of discourse is important to educate people. 1. The plan recognizes and respects the rights of indigenous peoples. 2. You all in this room are being educated on this important issue impact. 1. Mindset shift causes more likely support for indigenous rights in real life. 2. We stop cultural genocide from occurring and begin to remedy the huge losses in indigenous people.
This discourse is uniquely important.
Okay.
It's right
Right, So this is uniquely important because we stop cultural genocide from occurring and begin to remedy the huge losses people have suffered.
This comes before other types of discourse.
This comes before other types of discourse because cultural genocide is the most important thing because we're dehumanizing and we're killing like an entire race.
Question.
Yes.
What other kinds of discourse?
Meaning like applying to different other types of people.
Okay, cool, awesome, thanks.
Cool. All right.
And say it's uniquely important because we live in the United States.
Okay, uniquely important we live in the United States because we've screwed over people in the past. We need to continue with, or we cannot continue with this. Yes. Okay, advantage 2, the environment. Uniqueness. 1, the environmental preservation is uniquely necessary for all human survival. 2, indigenous people have a unique connection with the environment. They always have. This is extremely important because other groups do not have the unique connection to the environment we need to preserve and understand that the Native Americans' unique perspective on the environment. They were here first, okay? Anyway, 3, oil spills destroy tribal land and decimate the tribe's ability to function. This in turn destroys their culture and destroys their people, which in turn causes birth defects via oil spills, etc., etc. Ruins their way of life that they've had for many years.
Sorry, so
For indigenous
question,
people.
plan.
What?
Okay, what implementation are you defending?
The plan text itself.
No, but I mean like,
Discourse.
what happens after your plan is signed?
It's the discourse.
It's just the discourse of the round.
Speaking.
Okay, cool.
Cool, yeah. Anyway, so then 4, indigenous people value the environment a lot. Link. 1, the plan stops and limits oil spills in the new Northwest Passage of north of Canada. 2, the plan thus positively impacts the environment. The impact is 1, people must come closer to the environment in a globalized world. The environment is especially special to people because there's like an intrinsic impact or intrinsic positive impact that like no material good could equal. 2, this is key to achieving cultural sustainability for them, the indigenous peoples. This is key to achieving personal peace. Personal peace in the world is much more important in a globalized world that's increasingly chaotic. So 3 is that we intrinsically help in achieving a personal peace. Personal peace within the environment is key in a chaotic world to find ground. I'm done. All right, I'm done.
4 minutes and 36 seconds?
Yes.
See, this is exactly why sometimes I feel like speeding is unnecessary.
It is.
Why do you
Yeah,
think
it's a
that's
strategic
duty?
Oh, can I guess I'll use this chair. So
What's
we're
like
gonna
your
do-
for cross act?
I need to do this.
You need
Hey, don't bet on it too fast.
1, 2.
I'm sorry. Hello? This is?
Brett.
Okay.
You guys didn't have that many advantages, why'd you speed?
Oh, I thought it was gonna take longer.
For anyone that
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like a.
Was this like a critique?
No, it's about like discourse.
It's a critical app.
It's a critical app, yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's music.
It's a, all about discourse, just within the advantage.
So they're
Oh, is that a
basically,
bad?
Fabian's remains are ready.
Oh.
wait, your kitty died?
Saturday.
Oh, after 9 years?
21 years.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
He had a good life though.
She
She.
had a great life, and she didn't want to be a vet, and I took her home and lay in my arms and looked me in the eye and stopped breathing. It was actually kind of sweet. Horrifying and devastating. But you know, it's your cat. And yes, I actually have real feelings. I did cry over the cat. I know one of my kids from my other team told me that if someone stuck a knife in my heart, the knife would break.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so I flowed this on not too many pages, but I'm gonna have 2 off, app framework, then another like 1 or 2 off, depending on how you want to flow it, and then 2 more off, and then advantages.
Cool.
Good? Okay. Do you have it?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's in my pocket, sorry.
Do you want to do my sense so you can push it?
Oh, it's fine.
Is that what you decided?
Yes, Alex is looking for her when is the appropriate time for her to be reincarnated. He's going to look for her.
You ready?
It's Tom.
Yes. You good?
First argument is to adopt Galliano proof and ratify the interpretation that a congressional bill that has no international judicial and enforcement mechanism. The violations that they claim is solvency through fiat and through discourse. The standards first of all ground. The little A argument that solvency debate is always going to be the best. Always the best with negative because it forces the topical issues. The 2 arguments that is going to be the core negative ground because it's always essential to the negative has to question mechanisms of solvency. That's the point that they try to get past this through discourse. It's always going to be bad for the negative 3 arguments that fiating past is always going to be abusive because it whitewashes fucking issues that we talk about with the native tribes. The next argument is going to be limited. The first argument is the literature of the United Nations Declaration is currently non-binding, and changing that is going to be bad for education because it's assuming that it's not. The 2 arguments that grammar approve and sign is different than approve is not equal to sign. Every word has meaning. This is always going to be essential to our interpretation of the resolution. This is going to be motorist operates. Prior question you engaging in the game is also educationally and for rules of the game. Not only that, it's going to be a prior question engaging in any discourse because it's always going to be addressing our issues of discourse because ontology comes before methodology. Go to next. Interpretation. Negative gets 1 conditional policy advocacy and 1 critical app, and will collapse to 1 through the block. First argument is that this is essential for critical thinking because it's always going to be forcing affirmative to think on the feet, but the 2 arguments that this is going to be essential for affirmative strategy, making with things skews out with the ground framework in the 1 AC. It's essential for negative ground. The 3 arguments that depth is going to accomplish both depth and breadth, where we can have the depth, the breadth of education, but then we can pare down one topic and focus on that through the block, so it's going to be better for depth. The next argument is going to be key to discourse because it's the point where they try to exclude us questioning methodology, so it's going to be worse than negative ground. The next argument is also going to be key at the point where they say that policy making is going to be essential. We are also forming policy through our conditional advocacy. The next argument is that this is essential for topic-specific education. The point that they only question methodology is always going to be worse for topic-specific education. Next framework. Yeah.
Is this offensive?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I guess this is our discourse.
Are you just defending ground on that?
No, I'm defending that we get conditional advocacy. Framework.
That's what I was asking.
First argument is that we're going to be viewing a negative critique as a prior question of the impacts of the affirmative case because it's when they don't engage in any discourse of the actual resolution. It's always going to be whitewashing the issues. It's always going to be the white man's world at the point where we don't actually talk about real issues and native tribes. Two arguments that this 1% risk calculus is always just cross-play there. Arguments about how utilitarianism is shit. We don't believe it either. The next argument is that if we win, then our critique is help solve the government's hold on the legitimate use of violence. We're going to be winning this round. Next, on their framework. They say that discourse shapes policy solutions. Our discourse has to be informed by real-world ontological claims. At the point where they're not engaging ontological claims, it's always going to be white man's discourse over the Indian tribe discourse. The next argument is that they say representations verify solid methodology. Our representations are informed by our actual empirical claims, so you don't get any representations in this round. The next argument is that they say they have ethical hold. However, we are questioning your ability to claim ethical hold at the point where you say your discourse is the only legitimate one. It means you are white people talking about Indian tribes. It's always going to be worse for other people's discourse to the point where you say that's the only legitimate discourse. Next argument that you say you mask real world problems. However, you're engaging in a fictitious policy game where you say that the government's the only one who can solve this problem. That's always going to be masking problems worse because the government's creating the fucking problem. Next argument is that you say the framework is going to be providing us more grounds. Point where you say that you get affirmative RBIs. I'm going to talk about that now. You don't get any RBIs unless you can prove that the actual RBI is warranted. You say that there's no risk for the negative team. That's good because the negative team gets to question whether or not you're going to be on the topic. That's essential for negative team education. Two, it checks affirmative abuse with the three arguments that it avoids time suck on both arguments on both issues because at the point where you're going to be time sucking has to do with some sort of RBI issue is always going to be infinitely regressive. And not only that, you say it avoids judge intervention. However, Denise would always have to intervene to vote me down just on a stupid RBI. Next argument. The first argument of our critique is that this questions our relationships with other individuals start with analysis of our perception and orientation through and vis-a-vis the indigenous people. And two arguments that this shapes the views in which we used to oppress indigenous peoples through Western colonialism, but questioning our relationship to the individuals. Yes.
What was your first interpretation of the first chair theory, Shell? Excuse me.
What, T or condo?
The T.
T, dude, I don't have time. I hope you check your flow. Okay, next argument is that your notions of coercion give them just enough rights to keep them coming back to the state, but this is always going to be skewing them in the end to the point where you're giving them an empty gift because this UN declaration is an empty promise because it's not enforceable jurisdictionally. You're just saying that you're going to get a discursive claim on this, but you're never going to get any solvency, which is always going to be exactly giving them smallpox blankets or giving them empty gifts. It's always going to be exactly what's been happening, which means that you're whitewashing the issues further. You are painting a white predominant discourse, which is always going to be worse. The next argument is that we need to reject state-based solutions as the only way to get back the biological control into the hands of the indigenous peoples because they need to spread the control over the indigenous tribes. The next argument is that you're always going to be subjecting them to decisions of governmentality, which is always going to be the legality of colonialism to the point where you say that we need to sign a bill into Congress and enforceable by American and white people, person's law in order for the judicial, in order for them to have a face to their in order for them to have a face, it's always going to be worse for them because they're going to be inflicted into our judicial system. I'm sure you can talk to Tom or any of your other friends about how shitty our judicial system is for indigenous peoples. Not only that, you're going to be essentializing them on the periphery at the point where you're just always engaging the fact that we can only address them through our government is always going to be worse for them. The next argument is that the United States federal government is not the only mechanism for discourse. That you are bound to state-based solutions. That's always going to be whitewashing us to other alternatives and blinding us to other alternatives in the future, which is always going to be worse for us. The alternative. The United States federal government will cede all decision-making to an amalgamation of indigenous peoples who will then self-determine the decision-making and continual existence of the United States of America. This alternative is going to solve because, first of all, questions of the indigenous peoples can then be determined by them. Collectively, it's always going to be better than us determining this. Not only that, the two arguments that they can work our judicial framework back from the inside to recalculate themselves into our judicial framework is always going to be key to the affirmative ground. Additionally, the three are not key to affirmative ground. Sorry, key to indigenous peoples' non-essentialization. But the three arguments is always going to be solving better than the affirmative teams because really most of the claim of solvency is that they give indigenous peoples back a little bit of the land that were stolen anyway. We're giving 100% of it back. What now, bitches? We're always going to be winning this argument. The fourth argument is that you have no propensity to solve because it's an empty gift that never gets analyzed in the court system. Your plan is enough because we need a bigger and more sweeping reform, which means we're always going to be solving better than next. You can just cross-play all their impacts as to why we're essential. Go to the next argument, counterplan text. The United States federal government will approve and ratify a modified version of the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, omitting with reservation Article 26. This is mutually exclusive because you can't sign with French basins and sign the original bill itself. The Jew is always going to be competing on net benefits because we have disadvantage. Article 26 says indigenous people have the right to lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used. This is always going to be a lie. When this is non-binding, it means that we're always going to be saying, hey, we're going to give you back all the land, but we're never going to be giving them all the